Okay, Michael, we are live.
Hey Martin, how are you, man?
I'm very, very good, Michael. What about you?
I am awesome. My name is Michael Waitze, and welcome back to eCommerce Undercover. As always, I am joined by my super duper co-host, Martin Ronfort. We already know how you're doing today, man. What do you want to talk about today?
Today, I wanted to talk about, of course, innovation in e-commerce. Like that's the topic of this great podcast that we're doing together. But I,
Right?
I wanted to dig deeper into a presentation that I did with Payoneer like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and where I introduced
Okay.
like 10 topics about take 10 topics of in innovation nowadays into e-commerce. And like you can go watch the full presentation. We're gonna leave the link below in the description. There's some of the topics that we already covered on e-commerce undercover. Like for example, we talked about social commerce. We talked about conversational commerce. So if it's topic that you are interested in, you can just go watch the replay of our previous episode. But I think there's a few topics, Michael, that catch your eyes and that you wanted to talk today, right?
Well, there are a few things we wanted to talk about for a while, right? And actually,
Mhm.
some of these we will cover when we have some guests on in the future.
For sure.
But I want to kind of go in this order. I want to talk about back-end operations, right? In all cases, the back-end stuff, the stuff that people don't see, doesn't feel that sexy, and yet it is good. There's a lot of innovation or a lot of attempted innovation going on there. So I want to talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
I also want to talk about cybersecurity and fraud. It's a big topic. I did an entire podcast with Microsoft on my Asia Tech podcast. We can put a link to that as well in the show notes about fraud and scams and getting hacked and what a company like Microsoft, who's very dedicated to making sure that their customers are safe online, does. And they publish a report every 2 or 3 years, which we can also link to there. But it's very interesting. And we can talk about the equivalencies between offline to online.
Completely.
In the cybersecurity and fraud space, I've got some great stories about credit card fraud that I had happen to me, which are always kind of funny. And then something that I've spent a lot of time thinking about, and that is warranty and insurance. And I think it covers a bunch of different subtopics, but we can get to that,
Let's do it.
when we hit topic number three, right?
Let's do it, Michael. That sounds
Okay.
very very good. And as you say, like if we can start with logistics, I just say maybe that's not like a super sexy topic, but it's so important in e-commerce because if you sell online but you cannot deliver your customer, or the backend operation is not efficient enough, so it's too expensive or too long, then the whole e-commerce experience feels terrible, right? So
Yeah.
with the huge increase of online sellers and online shoppers due to the pandemic, the last 2 years, let's say,
Yeah.
then yes, so much money have been invested into like the backend operation and the logistics to be able like just to deliver people fast and reliably.
So my first question before we jump in, right, and you made some really good points is, look, you run an entire business that does sort of e-commerce facilitation, right? In other
Yeah.
words, you help people build websites, you do a bunch of back-end stuff for them. We'll get
Hmm.
into the back end in a second. But when you talk to your customers, because you're very engaged with them, when you talk to your customers, what do they tell you that they want? And then we'll jump into the operational side of it as well.
Is they want to be able to deliver their customer fast. This is really, really important like, because we see,
Really?
yeah, this is like really, really important. It's something that we see in e-commerce. If you say on your website that you cannot deliver in 2 days, you're going to have much more customer than if you deliver in 2 weeks. Like the conversion rate is like really, really, really much better when you can deliver fast.
But do people do that still 2 week delivery? It sounds like the old Amazon days when I was ordering my first or second book from Amazon. It was coming from some bookstore in New York and it was flying all the way to Tokyo. 2 week delivery seemed perfectly fine. I wasn't in that big a hurry to read that book. But is that still happening now?
It does still happening, especially when you ship from overseas. Not every company has a warehouse in France and a warehouse in Thailand and a warehouse in the US. It's super expensive to do that. So if they don't, then they need to ship overseas. So it's longer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can talk there. I bet there's some pretty innovative ways that people get around these shipping restrictions. I think we were talking a little bit
Oh
about
yeah.
that last night after work. We can talk about that under separate cover.
Mhm.
Okay. What other things that are really important to some of your users, customers?
I would say yeah. They wanna. they want to deliver fast. That's like very, very important.
Right.
Like, and they want to deliver fast in the market where they are growing. And this is maybe like what is important when you sell online, is that when you have a product, when you are trying to expand your brand, when you're trying to scale, then maybe you start in France, for example, and then you want to go to Italy, and you go to Spain, and you want to go to the US, and you want to go to the UK, right?
Right.
And if you're in France and you want to deliver in Spain or in Italy, that's fine. But now that the UK is not anymore in the EU, then it starts to be an issue if you want to deliver to the UK. So imagine you sell this beautiful pen and you want to ship like all the pen one by one to the end customers. Then it's going to be expensive and long, right? That's why like it's not all the time easy to deliver in 2 days or in one day, right?
Got it.
And if you want
Yeah.
to do that in the US as well, then it's easy like just to do an ad, and drive traffic to your website, accept payment, perfect. But once again, if you are only have like a warehouse in France, or maybe like just some of the brands, they just use their home or their own apartment, right, as the initial warehouse.
Right.
But like you can have the best product in the world. If you want to sell in the US, then you cannot just avoid the shipping time just to send that to the US, right? So this is why, like, with the huge increase of the number of brands that are trying to scale worldwide, like we needed a way to be able to provide this brand, these individual sellers, some better way to deliver the customer fast.
I'm amazed that people are still using their apartment or their office as their warehouse, but it
Yeah.
still happens for
It
sure.
still, and for many people, like, and all the little shops was been closed due to the pandemic, and that they turn their business online. All of those people, like, they don't have a huge volume, right? Like, they just had a
Right, right.
shop, in the street, like maybe, for example, in the south of France, there's so many sellers who just sell clothes, and those guys, they don't have huge volume, so they're not gonna have their own warehouse in the US, right? It doesn't make sense, but they need
I
that
hope not, but yeah.
because once again they want to deliver their end customer fast, So, and also, like, what if it doesn't fit the end customer? And they want to return. You're gonna say your customer, yes, ship to France. You go to the post and ship to France, so it doesn't work. So if we want to provide like a nice return policy, if we want to if we want to provide fast delivery time, I mean, for all of the online sellers, we need to have better logistics to allow these people to have nice offers at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
fair enough. Do you want to dig a little bit deeper? And maybe do you have any statistics on, I don't know, how much money is being invested into these back-end operations? And then maybe you can break it down into a few subcategories as well so we can just figure out what that really means.
Completely. So backend operations was the number two biggest category in terms of money invested in the last 6 months. So you remember, like, in the presentation I did with Payoneer, I break down the 10 categories, and I
Right.
and I noted the amount of money invested into these 10 categories. The total amount of money just announced the last 6 months on TechCrunch. So this is just TechCrunch, and this is only the last 6 months, was $7.7 billion
Just in the
invested.
last 6 months, it's like a more than $1 billion a month.
Yeah. And
Just invested into sort of e-commerce innovation companies kind of thing.
exactly. Exactly. And just for the 6 months, and once again, only on TechCrunch, because of course we don't know everything, right? Like, some
Right.
deals must happen, like, off, like, or, of this media. So this is only TechCrunch, and this is only in the last 6 months.
That's
Seven point
amazing.
seven billion dollar. That's huge, right? And just for logistics, it's $1.6 billion just for this category. And so what has been invested in is things like warehouses. Like, some company are building a network of warehouses, plus the last mile delivery. So basically, like, you can rent, let's say, a space into a warehouses where you can just ship your product there, and
Yep.
then they're gonna host that for you, but you don't need to buy the whole building. Like, they are going to handle that, and just, like,
Do it
just
for you.
share that. Yeah, that's much better, right?
Yeah.
So it's a model very well known. It's called, by, like, actually, Amazon has been doing that for years with their program called FBA, Fulfilled by Amazon. They
Right.
allow their sellers to just ship it to their warehouses, and after that they're gonna handle the delivery to the end customers. So that's super great. Amazon has warehouses everywhere in the world. So basically, like company just copy that model, but for people who are not selling on Amazon.
Right. So look, there are a few businesses in Thailand that do this. One of my favorites is Sokochan, right?
Mhm.
Right. Run by yeah, run by a couple of people in Thailand. Sokochan's a great business. They do that. They have got a series of warehouses starting in Bangkok, but going national. And they let sellers leave stuff in their warehouses, and when it gets fulfilled, they do all the warehouse management for them. They've also been invested, I believe, but I can double check. Adrian Stewart, I think, and his wife do this. It's an incredible business growing really fast. And again, e-commerce facilitation, it allows the e-commerce sellers to focus on what they do best, which is sales,
Exactly, and then
right?
they can work with this type of company to use their warehouses, but also to connect with a carrier who are going to deliver to the end customers quickly, right? And
Yeah,
if as an online seller I don't need to worry about that, then you're right. I can really focus on what I do best, which is marketing, which is customer support, which is creating some new stuff, because I know that this backend logistic can handle that for me and deliver to the end customer quickly, which is great.
right, right. And it's funny, right? Because we've had sort of next day delivery in the United States and
Yeah.
probably in Europe for years. But when we think about the traffic situation and just the immaturity of the logistics situation in Southeast Asia as a region, leaving Singapore out of it, in a way, you have to have a network of warehouses to be able to deliver, even inside of Bangkok or surrounding Bangkok. Just as an
Mhm.
example, Jakarta must be the same thing. Ho Chi Minh, Hanoi, all these big cities must be the same thing because the traffic is so congested
Mhm.
that
Right.
sometimes getting a product just across town can take 3 or 4 hours.
Mhm.
And if you need to make 10 deliveries in a day, you don't have 30 hours, right? So for that to work properly, you've got to have warehouses strategically placed and there has to be networked together so that they can do that most efficiently, right?
Yeah, and also like you also want to be able to track stock because you don't want to sell on your e-commerce websites something that is that is out of stock, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so you need also to have software to be able to connect your website with with the warehouse plus the carrier. Like all of that needs to be connected and talk to each other. So like you
Right.
don't oversell, you don't lose stuff, you can deliver your end customers. And if you have 10 customers, that's fine. But if you have 1,000 customers,
Yeah.
or think about a brand at the scale of Pomelo Fashion that we had David on the show,
Right,
like
right,
at
right.
their level, imagine like they need to be like super efficient in the backend operation. So if you can do that yourself, as Pomelo is doing, you can control everything. But when you are not that big,
Yeah.
like it's very important to work with this partner who can definitely help you with that. Otherwise, it's way too hard, and then you cannot scale your brand, and you just cannot do e-commerce.
Yeah, and when you think about the logistics of a company like Pomelo, I mean, it's not so different from some other bigger companies, but it's very sophisticated and very
Hmm.
complex, right? In the
Hmm.
sense that they also use their stores as kind of pseudo warehouses. Remember,
Yeah.
he told us about that whole program where they have where you can kind of reserve it, go and try it on,
Hmm.
try before you buy.
Hmm.
And then in the store you buy it, but then they also ship it. Some people come and pick up, some people don't pick up, some people get delivered. The logistics there, it's just another step higher, another factor higher of sophistication and complexity. And to do that takes some very sophisticated software, which is why that must have been one of the reasons why there's been so much investment in this sector. I mean, $1.6 billion, the second largest investment. I don't think anybody would have guessed that, do you?
I don't think so. Like to me, it made sense, right? When I see that, it made sense because once again, we have more online sellers, there is more online shoppers, so we need to be able to scale also the backend logistic to be able to deliver this guy. So it made sense when I see that, but would I have guessed before? Definitely not. Because like I didn't think it was like such so huge actually. I didn't think that there was such a big need into improving the existing operation.
Got it. What else do we need to talk about in the operational space?
I think there's also a trend that is coming,
Tell me.
and it's still on the delivery side, but this time it's on the customer expectation. There is more and more customer who want to be delivered on the same day, like now. And to be fair, I am one of them. Like I don't know about you, but I prefer to go to spend like 2 hours to go to the mall, buy the stuff, and come back than just buying online in 5 minutes, but being delivered in 2 days. Like I really prefer just having the stuff right now, even if it's
Same
longer.
here.
That's the same for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, I go to Fortune Town. You know what I mean? Every now and then I'll need a microphone. No, I need
No,
it.
no,
You
no,
can
no.
laugh,
It's
but I
not
definitely
when you
need it.
need it. It's when you want it.
No, I need it. I need my microphone. But every now and then I'll need a new microphone or a new boom arm, and you've seen it. I literally spend 3 hours
Just to go there and come back, right?
going there, getting exactly what I want. I know what it
Yeah.
is. I don't need to try it out or test anything. And you remember when we went to the Seven Peaks office,
Mm-hmm.
I was so concerned that I was going to, because I don't have a proper box, which I need the
Mm-hmm.
box, right? But I was so concerned that when we were carrying the gear there, if I had forgotten a cable, like an XLR cable, or maybe like one of these little hitches to connect the
Mm-hmm.
things to the boom arms, that we wouldn't be able to record. And I
Yeah.
just thought, oh, it's okay. I'll just order it. But
Mm-hmm.
even if it takes a day, it's too long. In other
It's
words,
way too long. Yeah.
and it should just be for some things that are in stock, it should be just as easy as ordering a pizza. Don't you
Exactly.
think? In other words, if I order a pizza, if we're going to go to Seven Peaks right now,
Mm-hmm.
and when we arrive, we want to make sure that there's a pizza we can bring upstairs, give it to the team there, thank them for letting us record. We could do that.
We should definitely do that. And this is important, right? Like,
Very.
and this is something that is more and more important. Like, especially for the Gen Z generation, so like the young shoppers right now, but who are going to be the next generation of the people who have money, right? Those
Right.
people, like, they want to be delivered today, really. Like, that's very important. And we see that because we did surveys on online shoppers to ask them like, what do you want, basically, and how we can deliver to you what you want on our e-commerce store. And yeah, and something that was very, very important was that, like, to be able to be delivered on the same day and to get the things like super fast. So this is another challenge.
Right. And do you remember the other day we wanted those 1/4 inch to 3.5 centimeter, I think, I don't remember exactly what the measurements were, but the adapter for the headphone jack, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're
And
right.
you had to go out and spend all this time walking around a mall for those four little things.
Hmm.
That insanity. And they only cost 30 baht a piece, but we would have paid like 200 baht to have all of them there and delivered. It didn't matter
Delivered,
because the time was more important than the cost, particularly at that cost, right?
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
So I can see why that's super important.
So yeah, so like this is another level of logistics. But to be fair, like I always wonder, like for example, last time I've been to buy, I think that was for my desk. Yeah, the day I buy my desk, I've been like to so many shops just to just look around and find one that I like, and I finally find one into one shop. And so I could see that. I could try. I was like, yeah, that's cool. I want to buy it. But they could not sell me the demo one. And they did not have it in stock in the shop. So they say to me, we're going to deliver it to you in 3 weeks. I was like,
And no, you're not.
I was like,
Yeah,
no,
no, you're
at
not.
first not.
No.
But like they say, you can go on the website, buy on the website, and it'll be delivered to you. No, maybe not 3 weeks, maybe 10 days. Yeah, I think it was 10 working days, which means 2 weeks, right? So they say like you can go on the website, buy it online, and then we're gonna deliver to you in 2 weeks. I was like, if you have it in stock, I am in the shop right now. What justify to make me wait for 2 weeks? To be honest, like I am in the shop, I want it. You say to me that you have it into the warehouse. If you can deliver in 2 weeks, why can't you deliver in 2 hours? You see,
Right.
like,
Did you ask?
yeah, yeah, I asked them, but of course,
What did they say?
they could not speak that good English, so and I cannot speak Thai,
Did you
so
try in French or
I think we could have the same output if I try in French.
same result?
It's the same results, but yeah, but like, but so to be fair, I think it's gonna be possible to be able to deliver that fast, and I think it's in many businesses it can completely change the business, because for example, for a furniture business, if it don't need to have so many desks and so many tables and so many lamps inside every shop, maybe we can rethink the way this shop works, just to be like, I don't know, like maybe just some showroom, and then you just
Right.
pay and you deliver directly from the warehouses where everything is, right? So yeah, I think there's some good stuff to be done on that part.
I mean, there's some simple products out there, like I said, like cables and things that already exist. You remember we went to buy a tripod for one of the cameras,
Hmm.
and they were like,
Hmm.
"We don't have it in stock. It'll take, like you said, 3 weeks to deliver." And I just said to them, I'll just go to another shop right over there. They've got plenty of other. I'm not wed to this particular tripod. I don't understand why it takes so long. I agree with you, particularly if the warehouse is, if it's on Rama 4, I can drive over there in an hour.
Exactly, yeah.
Why
Exactly,
can't you
yeah.
have a guy on a motorcycle bring it to me in 40 minutes?
Yeah, completely. Completely agree with you. So that's why I like this. I think that's the way they work, right? That their software, it's their process, and all of that stuff that make it hard to deliver fast. And this is exactly what is currently improved with all of these new companies that are coming and that are really working on this back-end operation to make it faster.
Yeah, I mean, look, Ninja Van, Lala Move, Line Man, all these businesses are supposed to be able to do these these logistics, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And I don't know, but I've never tried to do same day delivery for something small, but I have asked actually. The one place that can do it is this company called Million Head. I think we talked about it before.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted
We
to
did.
get the Rode Caster Pro. I had to look at it. I had to look at it. Please excuse me turning my head to the side. But I wanted to get the Rodecaster Pro because I wanted to test it out and I was just really excited about it. And I called them in the morning and they said, we can deliver it this afternoon.
And that's awesome, right?
And that was super. It was such a great experience.
Mm-hmm.
I won't shop with anybody else for that type of stuff because
That's so
I
true.
ordered another one from them. So I have
Mm-hmm.
one in my other studio. Same thing. I just said, can you bring it over today? They said, yes, but it has to be 6 o'clock. I'm like, I don't care. Just bring it today.
You're right. And there is also something you made me think about something, because like if we can do it online, why not be able to do it as well offline? Like when
Yeah.
I go to the
Agreed.
shop, but I don't want to carry the bags, and maybe I'm going to the restaurant after, or I'm going to buy
Yep.
something else, or I'm going to see some friends, and I don't want to carry the bags everywhere. So like, why not you just deliver it to me at an agreed time, and so like I know when I'm home, and you just send it to me. That's fine.
Yeah, I don't understand why that's so difficult to do. And I think there's got to be a software solution to this, and somebody needs to solve that. You're right. If I go shopping, even if I'm just buying clothes, and I think Pomelo actually does do this. You
Mm-hmm.
go into the store, you buy it, and you say, "Do you want us to deliver it?" Sure. What time?
That would be amazing, I think. And this is, I think, a good example again of the offline and online connection, and
Right.
how both worlds can work together, and that we cannot talk about e-commerce but just commerce, right?
Commerce.
And I think this can be very big in the future as well.
Right. I mean, I want to reiterate the fact that I've often said, I don't think offline commerce is ever going away. Offline retail will not disappear. People want to go shopping. It's a
Mm-hmm.
social thing. It's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we talked with Pomelo. The one thing that all of his customers wanted was a physical store, and we're just
For
going to keep
years.
repeating this so people can understand. There's going to have to be a marriage or a wedding
Mm-hmm.
between offline and online commerce.
Exactly.
And the person who does that the best is going to be the one who thrives, right?
Mm-hmm. And
Like
I
even
think
Amazon is opening up physical stores. I'm surprised that like Lazada and Shopee don't have physical stores. Right now would be the perfect time to rent one
maybe not yet.
because rents in Thailand are super cheap, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Maybe not yet. Maybe soon.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it, but I haven't seen those stores yet either.
AliExpress started to open stores in France and maybe
Did
in
they
other
really?
country. Yeah. There's a AliExpress stores in Paris.
Yeah, I mean, what I would do if I were Shopee or Lazada is I would take my top like 100 products, whatever they
Mm-hmm.
were, the ones that I definitely know I'm going to sell every single day, even if it's just like toilet paper and tissues and stuff like that,
Yeah.
whatever it is, and stock it in a bunch of little stores all over whatever city or country
Mm-hmm.
I'm in. And then when somebody orders it, they say, we'll be there in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
30 minutes.
Yeah, because you can also use these offline stores as a
As
local
shops.
warehouse, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly. As shops and as a warehouse.
yeah, exactly. And I really like this idea actually. Like I really like this idea of using these little stores as a way to sell stuff, but also a way to store stuff and then to deliver super fast to the local neighborhood. And it's
Yeah.
and in a city like Bangkok that is huge, right? And like you can easily have like I don't know 4 or 5 shops that you use this way, right? And then you only deliver to these shops, and then these shops deliver to the end customers, and the customers can as well come in, buy, and just go with that. I think that can definitely make the connection and the marriage between offline and online and make it very efficient and do stuff like same day delivery and stuff like that.
Right. So there was this big fad like 5 or 6 years ago where they wanted to put lockers
Okay,
at the
yeah, you're
BTS
right.
stations, right, or at train
You're right.
stations. So you order it, you get off at Prompong BTS because you live there, or RE BTS
Hmm.
because you live there, or Bang Na, and there's a locker there that has some secret code on it that you unlock with your phone,
Mm-hmm.
and then you take your product. But like, what if it's a vacuum cleaner? I don't want to pick that up at the BTS, even though it would fit in the
Mm-hmm.
locker.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want
But
to carry that home. In Thailand, it's 33 degrees every day on average, right? So why not just figure out a way to get it to a store really close to my house or just deliver it?
mm-hmm.
Because here's the funny thing. You're bringing it from a warehouse to the locker.
Yeah.
I get the efficiency of the fact that there's a bunch of lockers there, but I don't believe that that's a business model that's going to work really well. I could be wrong, right? But I don't think so.
Actually, like it's been a few years that it has been around, and it did not really like explode, right? Like not everybody use these lockers. I don't think
No, and I
so.
mean, there's a locker business. It's called like 24-hour box here at
Mm-hmm.
TDPK.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly,
Correct.
I've never, ever seen anybody use it.
I use them sometimes to put my stuff inside when I'm going around and I don't want to carry that.
Fair
But
enough.
that's it.
Fair enough. I've only seen one guy use it. I
Yeah.
know one guy that uses it, and I see you all the time, and I've never seen you use it. So I'm not sure it's being used that much.
But yeah, but I think that's very interesting what happened on the logistics side, and I think that's very important because it's gonna help online sellers to have better offers in the end for their end customers, right? So that's why I think that is a topic that we should really follow carefully and see like what are the new stuff that online sellers are going to be able to do in the near future.
I agree. Look, let's switch topics a little bit. I
Yep.
also want to talk about cybersecurity and fraud. Like I said, we'll put some links in the show notes to some
Yep.
of this stuff as well. What was the number? What was the ranking for the investment in this type of thing? And do you think it's actually going to be higher next year? Is this a number that's going to grow, or do you think it's going to fall?
How I think it's gonna keep growing. Like I
Just
don't
massively, right?
see how cybersecurity can be smaller, to be fair, because it's so important. It's so important, but it's also linked to many things. Like it's not like only cybersecurity, and I think this is what is interesting into this field, is that for example, um, so first of all, like it's very important because of course there is more sellers, more buyers, more
Yeah.
traffic. So of course more hackers, right? So you need to be able to help those sellers and those shoppers to be able to e-commerce safely, right? But why this matter? It's because the e-commerce world like gets bigger and bigger and bigger, but the servers infrastructure and like all of the stuff that hosts the website that handles payments, those stuff did not change much. So
Really?
yeah, so actually like almost everybody use the same servers. Like most of the people use cloud servers or AWS. Like there's like maybe 5 different type of servers, and that's it. So which means when you are a hacker, the way you hacked website five years ago is exactly the same as the way you hack a website right now, because the backend infrastructure is the same, but with much more data, much more traffic, much more transaction. So okay, you can increase the security you have on the servers. You can create new software. You can create new firewalls and new stuff, right? But it's directly linked also on the way we handle payments and the way we host the website. So I think like cybersecurity is directly linked also to the hardware, to the stuff that we use, for example, to host the website, and that's why like it cannot decrease in terms of importance. It needs to be like bigger and bigger and bigger over time, I think.
You make a really good point, though, right? In other words, at least over the last year and a half, I can't believe I'm saying this about COVID, but at least over the last year and a half, so many more people, excuse me, have not just started shopping online, but have been selling online, right? If you can't
Mm-hmm.
leave your house,
Mm-hmm.
even if you love going to the supermarket and picking out the vegetables yourself, or if you love going to the mall and shopping for shoes and shopping for tops and stuff like that, you can't do it. You couldn't do it for a while. So online commerce just exploded.
Mm-hmm.
But what it also told people was if they lost their job or they couldn't go to work, they had more time at home to figure out, hey, maybe I build my own online store.
Yeah.
And so a whole bunch of people came online that weren't familiar with cybersecurity or any kind of payment fraud, which we can
Mm-hmm.
talk about in a second.
Yeah.
And it just meant that the hackers must have awakened one day and just said, bring me some more pandemics, baby, because it's just so good for me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because the people that have been doing it for 5 or 6 years must have much better, I didn't say great, but much better security. But the new people that come on, their wallets hanging out of their back pocket, and they don't cover their PIN code when they're at the ATM machine. They do the same thing when they're creating their online store. Like, I'll get to the security part later.
Mhm.
right?
So the good news for these people is that most of the time they don't have the servers at home to host their own website, right? So
Of
there's
course.
nobody's doing
No,
that. So
no one
you
does that.
always rent a server into a data
Right.
center, right? So
Right. Right.
there's like a lot of stuff that this data center are going to do for you just because it's part of the offer, right? So
Right.
like there's a lot of stuff about cybersecurity that you don't need to think about because you need to rent the servers anyway, and you cannot handle payment yourself as well. You are going to go with company like Stripe or Omise or this kind of company. They are going to help you with the payments. So this company also handle the cyber security part for you. So yeah, so when you are an online seller, you don't need to think about it too much, right? Until the moment where like too many people use the same servers, too many people use the same payment gateway, and too many traffic goes through that, and this doesn't evolve that much over the last 5 years, but the traffic goes way increase a lot. So that's why there's not so much stuff that moved to keep hackers away. That's why that we need to do something here as well.
But I want to make this point explicitly as well. You keep saying like shared payments and shared servers. I don't think
Mhm,
people really understand. When you set up your first shop, right?
mhm,
Just like I did when I set up my first podcast, I wanted to get the most value for my money for my hosting.
mhm,
And I'm not a back end expert. And I
mhm.
think most people that do it aren't either.
You're right.
And what they probably don't realize is that even if they say they have this type of server with this type of throughput and it's guaranteed for this, they don't realize that they're sharing that server with somebody else. It's shared hosting, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But I thought shared hosting meant it's just in a warehouse with a bunch, in a server farm with a bunch of other people, and I have my own machine and they have their own machine and they don't mix. But what happened to me a bunch of times because it wasn't clear to me was that somebody was getting a DDoS attack on there. Somebody was trying to hack into somebody else's website,
Mhm.
and it killed mine too because it killed the server that it was sitting on that I was sharing with. Who knows? Because I don't know who
You
I'm
don't
sharing
know.
with. I could be sharing with a guy selling like, you know, butterfly portraits or somebody who's selling pornography, right? I just don't know. And that
Yeah.
traffic as well can get cybersecurity attacks that don't directly attack me, but directly affect me. Is that fair?
Completely. You are completely right. And that's why solutions like Shopify or like DrTech are so powerful because we handle this problem of DDoS for our customers. So
Right.
like because we don't want our servers to be down, right? Like we want our servers to
No.
to run. But so like we operate the same way as with shared hosting, but we handle the tech part of the shared hosting to be sure that all the website doesn't get hacked and doesn't get DDoS or they don't get down because one is attacked. And those shared hosting company, they don't do that. They just provide you with the access to the servers. They do not charge you $5 a month, $10 a month, and that's it. And yeah, you have access to the servers, like to this little part of the server to put your website on. You can share that
Right.
with 1,000 other website, and
Who
then
knew? Right.
enjoy. So that's why yeah. Services like what we do at DrTech or Shopify are very popular for e-commerce because we handle this part for you and we make sure that the cyber security and your data and all of that is safe with us.
Yeah, I mean, look, I used to host my stuff at this place called Stable Host, and I don't think they understood the irony because it was so unstable. Just my opinion.
Yeah,
Allegedly unstable. But
that's
what I
funny.
learned there was, and again, when I would call them and just say, "What's going on my server?" They would say, "We don't know."
Oh,
How can you
really?
not know?
They tell you that? We don't know.
They do. So, but it just means that you have to be really careful about how you're serving stuff because,
Hmm.
again, it's like if you rent out a room to have a party and you're not renting the whole building, if the people in the room next door to you are having a party, but they're drug dealers and drug traffickers, and do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then the cops show up, they could shut down the whole building, and that's basically what can happen to your website from a cybersecurity standpoint too. If somebody else is getting hacked, it could impact you in ways that you don't understand, and you can't really tell because you're not the one getting hacked,
Exactly. Exactly. So this
right?
is this is definitely like one thing that is happening into the cyber security field, like how we can handle the server part, because once again,
Right.
everybody's using the same kind of servers, the same kinds of firewall, the same kind of software. There is
Right.
not like so much tech stuff that would make the hacker's life hard because it's every time something new, right? No,
Right.
it's every time the same thing. So
Right.
if you can find one problem somewhere, then you can attack so many people, right?
Right. It exists somewhere else for sure.
Yeah, this is why we need new stuff. We need innovation here. We need softwares that protect. We need like a lot of new things. And this is why like cybersecurity gets so much money lately to be able to build those new stuff to protect those online sellers, right?
Right. And I mean, look, if your site gets hacked and somebody loses their data, they're very unlikely to come back to your site again because they don't trust it. So it impacts a bunch of different things on your site as well, right?
And also something that can happen and that most of the time happen with hackers is that they are going to enter your website, Michael. They are going to lock up everything and they're gonna ask you to pay for it. So they
Right. I
don't
mean, we
really
saw that in the United States.
And yeah, they don't really want to steal your data. They don't really want to steal the payment information of your customer because they cannot really use that after all. But they can just load up everything and say, hey, if you want to get back access to your business, Michael, you have to pay me $1 million, $10 million, right? So this is why there's also some startups who are innovating in the response to an incident that they're going to help you, because if it happened to you tomorrow and if you got some people who are hacking your website and would just shut down everything, which means your business, right? Because when you do e-commerce, I mean, you don't have your own, when you cannot access to your website, then you don't have any more business, right? So if they shut down everything and say, hey, you have to pay us $5 million right now to get back the access to your website, then how do you respond to that? How do you handle that? Do you call the police? Do you call the FBI? The FBI, like what are you doing against that? So there's some company that are starting some services to help you with incident response.
Yeah. And let's just say this is a real thing. I think it was back in May, the Colonial pipeline was
Mm-hmm.
attacked by ransomware. And it basically, it didn't shut down the pipeline itself. It shut down the computer services, the computers that ran it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the pipeline actually could have moved the gas and the oil around, right? But they didn't because they didn't have any way to charge anybody. So they
Mm-hmm.
just shut the pipeline down. And the hackers apparently asked for, I think it was 5 million bucks,
Mm-hmm.
which is a ridiculous amount of money to me. It almost seems like Dr. Evil in those movies where he said $1 million, because 5 million bucks is like nothing to these oil and gas pipeline companies, right?
Right.
But they
Mm-hmm.
still got their money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's real. This stuff really
Oh
happens
yeah,
in the
yeah.
real world. Yeah.
This really happens. So I don't have an example with the numbers, but I know that my dad's company has been hacked, like I think last year. Like my dad has a franchise of a big insurance company in France, and the mother company got hacked. They shut down all the operation for all the franchise, so they could not do anything for like maybe a week.
Wow.
And I don't know how much the hackers asked, but one day it was solved. like
I don't. It was just.
like magically, right? You just have to
I wonder.
wait, and there is
I
nothing
wonder if
that
they
can
had
do.
insurance.
This is where parametric insurance can help, right?
Come in really. We can talk about that later.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that later.
But
Yeah, but this is also something that is growing right now. Like, how do you answer to this kind of attacks? Because of course, when you are a big insurance company, like they have networks and they're prepared for that, right? But when you are a normal, let's say, online sellers making 2
right,
million, 5 million, 10 million a year, which
right.
is big but not huge, you are not into this network, let's say, of people who have access to the best
Yeah.
counterintelligence, let's say,
Right.
people. So how do you answer that, And so yeah, so definitely need some stuff here to help people with that.
We should spend a little bit of time talking about credit card fraud as well, right?
Hmm.
Because
Sure.
if there are people stealing people's credit card numbers, and I'll give you an offline story, and I'm sure there are online equivalents to this. This was a while ago,
Hmm.
but when I was at Morgan Stanley and I was working in Tokyo, but my former address was in New York, they would send my credit cards, my new credit cards, in that stupid unmarked envelope with a physical card in it for
Oh yeah.
renewal. And the guys in the mailroom would just kind of hold the envelope, feel it, and go, new credit card.
Hmm.
And they would just steal it and go shopping in Manhattan.
Hmm.
And I
Right.
was in Tokyo. It was like the easiest fraud in the world. And I remember once getting a bill for $1,279 or something silly like that. And it had shops in New York on it.
Of the name of the
So I
shop.
called, say it again.
If there was the name of a shop, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I forget what it was called. No, there was a Foot Locker. I still remember there was Foot Locker, and then there was some men's store that I would never shop in.
So funny.
And I remember saying to the head of the mailroom, just walk around the mailroom, look for the guy with like the brand new pants on and the brand new sneakers. That's the guy that stole my credit card.
So how did you handle that after that? Like you just like contacted your bank and get a
So I
refund?
contacted the credit card company and I said, I'm not
Okay.
paying this because I live in Tokyo. I haven't been in Tokyo. I mean, I haven't been in New York in 6 months and I don't shop at Today's Man, which was the
Mm-hmm.
name of that store. And I haven't been at a Foot Locker in Manhattan in years because I live in Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
And so they canceled all the charges. And from now on, please send my new credit cards to my home address in Tokyo. And they did that.
So
Right.
that
But
fixed the problem.
I mean, that was 30 years ago. Right. But it's important to know that that type of fraud still happens online. And there are costs built into the credit card
Mm-hmm.
that should help mitigate that for the credit card companies, right? Some of the fees that the merchants pay and some of the fees that we pay are basically for insurance for them
Yeah,
to mitigate fraud.
definitely.
Yeah.
And this is a very 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 important topic in e-commerce because like this is directly linked with payment, right? Like how do we handle the payment online? And once
Right.
again, like this is another category that got a lot of money the last 6 months. They got like a lot of money invested into new startups, creating new ways to handle payment. One example is the buy now pay later options,
All
right? Where
right.
you can just go online and get a product and pay in 30 days. So once again, there is nothing new here, right? Like we can do that offline since years, but it's new in e-commerce. And why
Right.
this is a problem is that when there is some credit card fraud online, then you just cannot create this kind of offer, right? So you have to be sure that the people who are going to use this option to pay for their e-commerce expenses, then they are really going to pay in 30 days. So you need to be sure that it's the right person. You need to be sure you have the identity. You need to be sure there is no problem with the credit of all the debit card. And yeah, all of this is not solved yet. So once again, there's like a lot of innovation to be sure that we can we can yeah re- reduce the number of fraud on credit card on identity, so we can handle payments safely as well.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and there's also something very interesting into that is that there's not a lot of players who handle payments. So
No.
like there's really like a few key players like Stripe, PayPal, and like a lot of e-commerce sellers use them to handle the payment. Which means when we use them, we trust them like to handle the fraud, right? And when Stripe says, "Oh, that was a false payment," then you need to trust them, like because they didn't charge the customer, they didn't get the money, so you didn't get it as well, which
Right.
means you lost the sales, right? So when you trust Stripe with their fraud system, their anti-fraud system, right? There is definitely some false alarm. Like sometimes they say this was a fraud, but this
Right.
was not a fraud. So we need. It's very very important that we can develop this anti-fraud system to be able to reduce the number of false alarm, because that's lost sales at the end of the day for the online seller. So
Right. And it goes both ways, right? There are plenty of examples, and I'm not a PayPal user, but I have plenty of friends that have to be PayPal users because they exist in the e-commerce space.
mhm.
There are plenty of examples, particularly if you start with an e-commerce site and it starts off quickly, they'll say that the seller is now creating fraud
Exactly. Yeah.
and they'll shut down your account for weeks, months at a time. And
Yeah.
I know people that have had to argue for decently large sums of money,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it goes both ways. It's not just lost sales, it's potentially lost revenue and a lot of these people take the money that they earn at the beginning and then reinvest it back in their businesses.
Yeah. Exactly.
And if they make 25, 30 or $100,000 a month,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like they're taking that and going out and buying a condo.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking that money and then setting up new stores or buying new products or maintaining inventory or optimizing and stuff like that. And if these payment companies don't give them their money because they think it's fraud based on some false flag,
Then
that's also problematic.
that's also huge for them. And this is a very great example, and this is great that you bring this up, because this is real in e-commerce, and I don't think that
Absolutely.
people really realize how problematic this is for online sellers. This is a
Right.
really big problem when your Stripe account and your PayPal account gets suspended because they think you are doing fraud, which means your whole business is over overnight, and they can just like keep your money for 6 months, for 12 months, for like really long period of time because they think
Right.
you are committing fraud, and overnight you cannot sell, like it's done. So
Yeah.
something that is happening that is very fun for me is that some people start to sell Stripe accounts or PayPal accounts that have been flagged by Stripe or by PayPal as trustworthy. So basically, they have kind of like a PayPal account farm where they are going to get, like for example, 12 months history of small transaction. And when PayPal say, okay, we trust this account, they are going to sell it to you. So then you can use that safely for your company without the risk that PayPal like catch you and stop you. This is insane, right? But this
It's
is real.
insane.
This is real, Michael. This really happens. Like I see more and more people farming this Stripe and PayPal account
It's
to
terrible.
to be able then to sell that to online sellers who want to scale quickly. This is real. Like I see that every day, and they sell this account very expensive. It's a few $1,000 per account just to
I'll
have
have to
the
get one.
just to have the just to have the trustworthy badge, basically. So that's yeah. To me, that's crazy.
That's insanity. That's the wrong solution.
That's yeah,
But imagine, but I mean,
but
imagine if you opened up imagine if you opened up a pizza shop on the street
yeah.
in the physical world, and then just people started lining up outside to buy pizzas, and then the cops came over and said, "This must be a scam," and they just shut you down, and they didn't. Then they took all the money out of your register, and they wouldn't take your phone calls.
Yeah, this is exactly what
It's
happened.
not the right solution.
This is exactly what happened with this payment gateway. But once again, I think there's like, of course, some issue with fraud and stuff like that. We need to work on that to reduce it. But also,
Exactly.
another thing for me is that there is way too much power into the end of way too few people. There is not
Too
enough,
highly
I think.
concentrated.
Yeah, it's highly concentrated. Like once again, all of my sellers they use PayPal and Stripe. This is handling like 95% of all the transaction. This is
Right.
way too much. This is way too much. I think like we need more competition into that. We need new players. We need new way. So then like I think if there is more competition between those payment gateway, they will have to have better offer to be attractive, right? So they will need to work on the fraud system, on the fact that we block the accounts and all the compliance stuff better because there is more competition, right? So yeah.
It reminds me of that soup guy on Seinfeld, where if you didn't line up right or order right, he'd just throw you out of the shop. No soup for you. Anyway, no cash for you out of your account. It's kind
Yeah,
of what the payment guys are saying.
this is what happened. But this is not only on the payment gateway side that this happened.
Right.
It also happened on the marketing side with Facebook and Google. They do
Correct.
whatever they want as well,
Right.
and
Same
there's
thing.
also a lot of issue there because they can just shut down your business. And actually, like this is a question we forgot to ask to David Ju from Pomelo, but I really wonder how they handle that because they must have the same issue as everybody, and I don't know. I'm really
Yeah.
wondering how they do handle that. So maybe next time we have him on the show, I will ask him all of these questions.
Maybe at that panel, I'll ask him those questions.
Yeah,
The
for
panel
sure. Yeah,
discussion.
right. For sure.
Okay. Let's finish up with something again that sounds a little bit arcane, right? But I think is actually more a part of most people's lives than they understand, particularly when it comes to commerce, and that is warranties and insurance, right? So in the old days, you'd go to the electronics store, you'd buy a camera, you'd open up the box. There was a warranty sheet in it. You'd have to fill it out. You kind of just threw it over their shoulder and started using your fancy new camera. So most people, I guess, didn't fill it out. At least I know I didn't. Apple sells something called Apple Care. Most people don't know that that's actually embedded insurance, right? So you buy that along with your product, and if something happens to your product over a certain period of time, you just get the benefits of having insurance on your product. But what does everybody else do? What's the reason for this part of the conversation, this type of innovation in e-commerce?
It's because it increases sales. Like at the end of the day, I think if you buy a camera and there is no warranty on the camera, you're not gonna buy the camera, or you are going to buy the camera from another company, from a competitor who is able to provide you with the warranty in case it breaks. And
Right.
if Apple is doing Apple Care, it's because once again it works, and many people buy that insurance to be like to protect their product against any kind of issues. And we see that like we see that of course in the offline world, people are very interested into this kind of offers. Like they want to buy the product with the warranty, they want to buy insurance to insure their products, but this did not exist in e-commerce until very recently.
Right.
And this is
Yeah.
what
And
is
again, I like to make these online to offline equivalents, right?
Mhm.
If you're a shop owner and you close your shop for the night,
Mhm.
or even if it's open, you have probably fire insurance, flood insurance,
Mhm.
theft insurance,
Mhm.
right? Snow insurance, whatever it is, some kind of weather insurance. But if you're online, what's the and that's all, those are all infrastructure questions, right? In other words, if your shop burns down, or if your shop floods, or if your shop gets too much snow or something, or if somebody steals something,
Mhm.
you have insurance. And that insurance is well understood. It's all indemnity insurance, right? So if
Mhm.
something has to happen, then you have to haggle over value,
Mhm.
right? But online, if you're running your own e-commerce business, and I think even Amazon through their marketplace, that their sellers don't have insurance, at least not that I know about it, that I understand. But there, if you want to talk about innovation, right, there are new companies coming into this space that want, and also let's say your electricity went down in your shop
Mhm.
and it was down for 3 days and it was the winter time, so you couldn't heat your shop.
Mhm.
You'd have to have insurance for that, business interruption insurance.
Makes sense,
But
right?
online, say it again,
Yeah, it completely makes sense, right? And every store do that. Like they have insurance for that, right?
almost have to. It's like built
Yeah,
into their cost
yeah,
structure.
that they
But
have to.
online,
Nobody has.
what happens if your internet connection goes down? What happens if your CDN goes down, which we saw both Fastly and who was the other one?
I don't remember. I just remember
I can't
Fastly.
remember the other. I can't remember the other name. It wasn't Cloudflare. Akamai, right, went down as
Mhm.
well,
Mhm.
and impacted Amazon.
Mhm.
And I think it also impacted Pinterest.
And
This is a big deal, though, right?
Shopify as well.
And
And
Shopify.
when you are just Shopify is using Fastly, which is a great CDN, they are doing something awesome.
Sure,
But when Fastly goes down for any kind of reason, then Shopify just leaves more than 1 million store offline,
offline.
like this,
And if
right?
they're offline, like let's say they're offline 3 weeks before Christmas,
Yeah,
when most of your sales are occurring,
yeah. Then what happened, right?
right? Or in India, like 2 weeks before Diwali or something, some big festival, right?
Yeah.
You have just real problems. And that type of stuff, I think, needs to be insured. And there are a bunch of companies innovating in this space. You say what? They've raised how much money in the last 6 months?
So there is only one company into this category that raised $260 million.
So that's super concentrated. One company.
Yeah, there's one company. It's only one. I asked them if they had competitor into their field, because like they want to insure people, like they don't want to insure a company like Amazon or Walmart, like this huge player, right? They want to insure the online sellers who are selling their own stuff,
Got it.
like if they had their own physical store, right?
Got
And
it.
in this market, they are alone. There is only them. There is only them, and like there is so much money that is spent on that. But to be fair, I really believe this can be very big because like once again, like we see that in the offline world, and you made the equivalency like very great and very easy to understand, and that's great. And online, it doesn't exist. If your CDN goes down, if your server goes down, if the internet connection goes down, like your store is offline, and this can lead to millions of loss, right? Of revenue lost, and this can be a big issue. So like, what about we insure that, and we give some insurance basically to the online sellers?
Right. And there are multiple ways of multiple lines actually would be the technical term of insurance that need to happen here, right? So
Mhm.
you should be able to create a product like AppleCare for any product that gets sold online, right? So if you have Martin's store, you should be able to have Martin Care
Yeah,
and have the same sort of options and the same level of sophistication because at the end of the day, it's just reinsurance capacity, somebody underwriting your product insurance
mhm.
and the technology to be able to distribute it.
Yeah, yeah.
Really straightforward. So that's part of it. You have to have product insurance. But on the other hand, you need the fire insurance, the flood insurance. And to me, that's outage insurance. Again, if your CDN goes down or if your internet goes down and it goes down for a specific amount of time, there's parametric insurance, which is not indemnity, where it just gets triggered by a certain parameter, has a fixed payout, and companies that have raised money, not $260 million, but almost $1 million US, 800,000 francs, right? Called Riskwolf in Switzerland and Austria, are building those products as well. But this type of innovation, I think, is really necessary. And full disclosure, I know the team at Riskwolf, so fair enough. But that type of insurance has to happen because for, let's say, like for your sellers, they don't have the same leverage that Amazon has, right? So when they complain, they're complaining, it's like spitting into the wind. But if they're already insured,
That's another story.
and imagine the trust that accrues to them if they can tell their buyers, so through the Apple Care style product, right, that my products are insured. So if something happens, you have insurance for X amount of time at X amount of payout. But also if their sites go down because of internet connectivity or their cloud provider goes down, they can also get insurance. That's a revelation, no?
Completely. I completely agree with you. And you are right. Like this is there's really two things here, like the insurance on the business and the insurance on the product. And
Right.
I think like the insurance on the product is also like so interesting because it's gonna, once again, I think to me, it's gonna increase the trust that online buyers can have to the
Absolutely.
shop. So in the end, it's just gonna increase sales at the end of the day, but also like it can also increase the revenue because the company that are selling this insurance, when they are splitting the revenue with the online sellers plus them, which means that it's a new line of revenue for your store. If Apple is
Right.
doing that, it's not because they just want to be nice. It's because it makes money, right? So
They're not being nice, but yeah.
so yeah, so like right now, like very soon actually, any online seller will be able to have an Apple Care Lite offer to their buyers. And I think this is like you say, I think this is a revolution because it did not exist at all before
No.
at online. I, I mean for non-Apple products, and this can really increase the trust that buyers can have into these online sellers, and yeah, just by better. And I know that this company that raised $260 million, what they are doing is that they are kind of doing like the parametric style of insurance, where you can just, if you have a problem, you just contact them, and they just send you the refund or a coupon to just go buy the new one almost instantly. Like there is not
Wow.
not a lot of paper, there is not like a lot of stuff to deal with. Like it's that they really build this policies, these insurance policies first, but as well as all the back-end operation, let's say, to make it very smooth and easy for the end customers to make a complaint and get the money. So that's super
That
good.
is just, it's an incredible product, right?
Yeah.
I
That's
like it.
yeah, that's gonna be great, and I'm really like yeah, I'm really excited about seeing how this is going to develop in the near future, when the online sellers are going to start to be in touch with this kind of offer, and they will be able to make the choice to implement them for your store or not. Like as at DrTech, we have a very like strong relationship with our sellers. I
Very.
cannot wait to introduce that kind of stuff to them and see what they think about it.
That is awesome. Okay. I think we've covered a ton of ground today.
Definitely, that was very interesting.
And refresh my memory, Martin, how can people get in touch with you?
So they can email me directly at martin@lodr.tech. What about you, Michael? How we can get in touch with you?
Michael at asiatechpodcast.com. And please watch some of the other shows. We have AsiaTechPodcast.com, Asian FinTechPodcast.com, AsiaInsureTechPodcast.com. It's in the name.
You are so much
Just
for
look
that,
for
Michael.
Michael Waitze Media on Apple Podcasts. Thanks, Martin.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Michael. And like for like we just covered like 3 topics today about like the 10 categories. There's some
Right.
other categories that we already cover on the previous episode, like social commerce and stuff like that. So feel free to go look at this oldest episode. And once again, we're gonna just leave the link in the description for you to go see the full presentation at Payoneer and get all the information. That was nice.
Yeah, ecommerceundercover.com. You can also look at the e-commerce undercover channel on YouTube. It should be on Apple, on Spotify, and anywhere where you listen to your favorite podcast. Thanks again, Martin.
Thanks, Michael. That was awesome. See you soon.